Hey everyone, in this video, Jeff from Dream Territory Productions gives you a walkthrough of how he landed a sync placement for a song that he produced called Bag Talk.
Up on my game, I know my worth, cut me a check. Never the same, I put in work, ain't gonna beg. Don't mess with lames, no back and forth, got my own lane. You can't compare, food on your neck, ain't nothing changed. I've been eating all my vegetables, and I'm getting thick. Ain't no time up on my schedule, I'm about to hit a lick. They're loving how I bounce, speaking more than you allow. If it ain't about the bag, then what you really talk about? Let that bag talk, let that bag talk, ayy, let that bag talk, let that bag talk.
So Bag Talk was produced for an artist named KatTye, and the song was synced to an episode of a television show called Temptation Island.
You don't want to bless us? Give us our blessings, please. We need them.
Let that bag talk, let that bag talk, ayy, let that bag talk.
If you do enjoy this interview, let me know in the comments. I love doing this kind of stuff, reaching out to subscribers, and I'd love to do more. If you want to contact me, I will leave my email address on the screen right now. Feel free to reach out to chat or just drop me a line. But without further ado, let's jump into it. Hi, Jeff. How's it going today?
Great, Robert. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really good. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us and talk about sync.
It's my pleasure, man. I appreciate you having me on here.
So can you outline for us what is sync licensing?
Well, sync licensing in a nutshell is essentially syncing music to a live video. Anytime you have like a movie or a commercial or a TV show, for example, and it has music in it, that music has been synced. The show or the movie that's utilizing the music, they obtain a sync license for using the music for their, for whatever purpose it may be. So what's really cool is, like, for example, even if if there's a bar scene in a movie and you hear, some music playing on a jukebox, that music has been synced essentially.
How long have you been applying for sync placement?
I started this journey back in October of 2020. And that's when I really learned about sync. And I actually took a course that KatTye Heller had provided, 6-figure songwriting. And you learned all about the sync world, about the business side, about the music side, the particulars of, what music supervisors may or may not be looking for in the music. And that's when my journey started. And the first time that I actually, I would say, applied for a sync or a placement that would have been, I think, in August of 2021. So it took me a little while to get to the point where I was ready to, submit a song for a placement.
How many different songs have you submitted in total?
In total, not really that many, relatively speaking. I've probably submitted maybe 6 or 8 songs, let's say, I think about with the goal of getting a placement. Probably 4 or 5 of those have actually been signed with a sync agency. And then at that point, it's, we have an agreement that they're going to attempt to get the songs placed at some point. Sometimes the agency will have a specific need in mind for a brief, what's called a brief. That's when, like a TV show, they reach out to like a sync agency, for example. They'll reach out to them and they'll say, we're looking for music that would be for this type of show. It may have, they may provide you with a reference of the type of music that they're looking for. They may even provide you with an artist that, we want a song by this, that sounds something like somebody, from this artist and, with this kind of feel, etc. And then if they have that in their catalog from the music that you provided to them or that, that's on their roster, then they'll dig into that catalog and they'll provide that to them. But sometimes they'll reach out to like people that have signed with them before, for example, or even to the community at large, that they know about, and they'll let you know about what the brief is, and they'll say, we have a deadline of next week or it's due tomorrow. So sometimes you may have time to actually write a song and get it finished and submit to them, but sometimes you don't have any time. And so hopefully you'll have something in your catalog to submit to them.
So what was your role in this production, Bag Talk?
My role in this production was Tye Ellen, who is an artist that I've done a few songs with before. She's part of the group KatTye. And essentially, she reached out to me to see if I wanted to be involved in a collaboration on the song. So they had a theme in mind, and they had lyrics, and they needed the production on it. So my role in it was to produce the song and to mix and master it. The other co-writer on the track is the artist KATONTHEMUV. So she's the one who's actually rapping on it, and her and Tye wrote the lyrics to the track and came up with the theme. They had a reference track in mind of kind of what they wanted. And when you're utilizing a reference track, in production, or even for sync or whatever, the goal isn't to replicate the reference track. The goal is just to utilize the reference track in order to get an understanding of the feel of the track, and possibly the tempo, the BPM, for example. So you utilize certain elements. What you're looking for is to see that, to create a track that would fit in a playlist with the song that you're referencing. So it wouldn't seem like, what's that song doing in that playlist? You want it to feel like that song belongs in the same playlist with 10 other songs or 100 other songs that are in the same genre or in the same theme.
You use it as a target to hit almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you enter this project with a sync placement as the goal?
Yes, we did actually. There was a tight deadline for this one, so I had essentially 2 days to finish the track. And so it was pretty tight. We ended up not submitting the track for that particular brief. The placement came about a month later. There was another opportunity, and that's when Atrium Music reached out to Tye regarding looking for a song for Temptation Island, for season 4 of Temptation Island. And so she reached out to Kat and myself to see if we would agree to submit the song for this opportunity, and we agreed to it, and the rest is history.
So I'm curious, did you find that having a deadline changed your workflow at all?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You may have experienced this before, but sometimes when you don't have a deadline, you can work on a track for a very long time. If you don't set a deadline, if there's no urgency to it, you can really, you can sit on it, and it sometimes it'll even end up in your hard drive, for a long time.
Yeah.
But if it's something that, for certain that you're going to release it, so there's somewhat of a deadline, you might rehash things that you've done. It's just not good enough. I got to do this differently or whatever. And so for me, I found that, having this tight of a deadline, I had to make decisions very quickly. I had to work with my co-writers as well, to run it by them to see if this is what we're all looking for. It really put a lot of pressure on me to make decisions quickly. And a lot of times, sometimes that's when you make your better decisions, I think,
Absolutely, when you're under pressure and when you have to make a decision, right? I'm reminded of the quote that's done is better than perfect.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
So can a producer apply for sync in any genre?
Yeah, really any genre is a possibility for sync. There are some genres that may not be as popular, like country music, for example. It's just not utilized very much in the sync community or in the sync world, and that's, if you look at, TV shows and, commercials and movies, etc., and you look at, you listen to the music in them, how much of that is country music, for example, so it just happens to be one of those genres that there's not a big demand for. But yeah, any genre has a possibility of getting a sync placement. In
the sync world, is diversity in your production portfolio a strength?
I think that it's an advantage to have diversity in your portfolio. What's important is that the music that you're producing be authentic. You don't, even though you may write a song, you may produce a song and complete a song with the end goal being a sync placement. You want it to have authenticity. You don't want it to just be something that sounds like it was, chopped together for that particular purpose. And so it's kind of a fine line in some regards. If you're an artist and you have a fan base and you have your music that you want to pull from and to for sync opportunities, then you want to bring that same mindset to other music that you may decide to write for, let's say, the purpose of getting a placement, something that's more specific for sync. And so you might, work under a different moniker, for example, that's not necessarily your artist profile.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of the situation that happened with Bag Talk. You want to bring that authenticity to whatever else music that you're writing that may not necessarily be something that you would release under your artist name, but or something that you might release on your own album, let's say. Like, for example, I produce hip hop, pop, rock, grunge, and I really enjoy that. And so I guess to get back to the point, yeah, I think it's an advantage to have a wide variety of music that you can draw from the well for, because really sync, it's a numbers game. The bigger your catalog, the more opportunity you have for you having a song that's going to work for a particular brief that they're asking for music for.
Okay, Jeff, tell us, what did this sync placement do for you?
The first biggest thing I think that it did for me is I broke down that door, that first placement door, that anybody that's trying to do this and that works hard at doing this is, getting that first placement is just, it's like, wow, I got my first placement, And so, that really felt good. The other thing that it did for me, I feel is, I feel that it gave me, credibility with my peers who are also trying to do this, The one thing about the sync community and all the people that I've worked with, or not even just worked with, but just know in the different communities on Facebook groups and things like that, where we're all working towards the same goal, is everybody is working together. There's no competition. It's everybody trying to help everybody else, and there's plenty of opportunities out there. There's so many opportunities, and so it's not like it's not competitive. You're only competing against yourself. I think that it gave me a sense of confidence too, that I know that the music that I'm producing is of the quality and it has the right elements that music supervisors are looking for example.
Well, on that note, I have a viewer question here. This one comes from Justin, who has a rock band in Los Angeles. What's the most effective way to get a music supervisor to take a look at your song when there's so many others out there?
Yeah, well, Justin, what I would recommend, when I was first learning about sync, there was a lot of discussion and a lot of, I guess, lessons, for lack of a better word, on how to approach a music supervisor, and more importantly, probably how not to approach a music supervisor. Your first thought might be, well, I'm going to find out who the music supervisor is for this particular show that I like or whatever, and I'm going to email them or I'm going to call them and see if they'll listen to my music. And the problem with that is, they're bombarded with those types of requests and emails, and they are typically so busy that they just don't have time to get to them. And it's all about developing relationships, and what I've found, since taking the course, since working and actually talking to a lot of supervisors, what I've actually found is the best way to get a music supervisor's attention is through a sync agency. And so these music supervisors already have relationships with sync agencies. And essentially what I've found, and I think a lot of other people probably feel the same way, is that it's probably better to go through a sync agency and have them, leverage that relationship that they already have with the music supervisor. Because like I said, in order to talk directly to a music supervisor about your music and getting a placement, you really need to have a relationship. And, think about what that takes to develop a relationship with somebody. You don't want to just, cold call them and have idle chit chat for 5 seconds and ask them to listen to your song. It's just, it's not real, right? And, and these are people, they're authentic people, and they're very busy. And so you really just, it's very difficult, I think, to develop that one-on-one relationship with a music supervisor just from nowhere. And so all of my activity has been really through sync agencies. And I think that a lot of other people that I've worked with and talked with, I think that they've found that to be the situation too, that the best route is through a sync agency.
This is another question from Justin. He asks, how do you know your style of music in genre, production, or accessibility is right for a certain type of show or other medium?
When there's a request for music, it comes through what's called a brief. And in that brief, there's a description of the type of music that they're looking for, right? And obviously, you can tell if they're looking for, let's say, rock, they're looking for something rock, something that sounds, either contemporary, or they're looking for something that sounds like 80s rock. Those are very specific. They may even list the tempo that they're looking for. Is it upbeat, or they want something that's dark, for example? With the descriptions that they provide, you can discern that, of your music, does it really fit that category or not? Is that what this particular brief is looking for? When you're trying to determine if the music that you have is going to be utilized for sync in general, let's say without having a brief, one thing you can do is you can, if you have a particular show in mind, for example, or a movie, listen to the music that's in that television show. Are they using the kind of music that I'm creating? You can actually go on, for example, IMDb, I think it is, where you can see all the facts about movies. You can go into or movies, television shows, everything, and you can see the listing of the songs that they've used in the show. For example, sometimes you can even see who the music supervisor is. And sometimes you can, if you know who the music supervisor is, you can at least look up what that music supervisor, is kind of looking for. You can just kind of research them, and many times they'll have Spotify playlists even that they kind of track, and you can kind of see what kind of music they may be looking for. But essentially, any music that you have has the potential to be, have a placement.
So several viewers were curious about your process for getting the sync placement. I've got a two-part question here. The first question comes from Renato, which is general. How does one get a sync license? And Linus asks the same question a little more in depth. What's the step-by-step process to go from prospect to lead to close? What needs to happen at each stage to make the sync happen?
I will tell you that in the sync world, relationships are extremely important and extremely valuable. As far as getting the brief, I've been very fortunate to work with Tye Ellen, and she's engaged with a lot of groups and sync agencies, and she's very proactive on looking for briefs and watching these briefs come through from these agencies and groups. And so as far as getting the briefs, she's been instrumental in me to hear about a lot of the briefs that I've seen. And aside from her, belonging to different Facebook groups where they hear about different briefs, or actual sync agencies. There's some sync agencies that are on Facebook. You'll hear about the briefs that they're private groups, and so you can only hear about them within the group, and then you're not supposed to share them outside of the group either. So that's a couple of sources where you might hear about a brief. Also, like for example, Taxi. I've never utilized them, but they put out briefs too. So in other words, having relationships with people that either have access or are getting briefs, or belonging to groups that where you'll be able to see the briefs that they're being presented with. That's how you would get the brief. And then let's say that you get a brief and you create a track, for that particular brief. If you're a producer, and let's say you have a singer working with you, and you both, work on the track, and you produce it, and you get the vocals on it, and you have the lyrics for it, and everything's done. At that point, the brief came from a sync agency, and so you would submit your track to that sync agency. Then at that point, they would review it, and they would determine if they want to submit your track for the brief or not. So I've actually been involved in that process before, where a brief came in. I had a track that I thought would fit for it. I submitted it, and there was probably maybe 1,000 other people submitting as well. And so it took a while for the sync agency to review the tracks and determine which ones they wanted to submit. I'm not sure how many they may have chosen, but let's say out of those 1,000, they might have picked 10, because they're going to look for the quality of the music, the quality of the production and the mix and the master. But they're also going to be looking to see, is this really what the music supervisor or what the brief just is looking for. So it's going to go through their filter. And then if the track is submitted in the brief, then it goes through another process where the music supervisor that's assigned to that project, they review it and they make a determination if which tracks they want to utilize. And at that point, if your track is selected to be for a placement, then the sync agency, because they submitted the brief, right? They made the brief available. The sync agency is going to reach out to you and let you know that your track is that they would like to place your track, and then they would offer the terms of the agreement. So each sync agency has a little bit of a different agreement. They have their own business model and their own, terms for how long, the music, the track is going to be assigned to them for example, what the payout might be and all of that, so, but that's essentially how the flow would go.
So on that note about the contract and everything, I had another viewer question that was about getting a music lawyer. Do you need to get an entertainment lawyer before sending material out or when you're signing the contracts?
I think an entertainment lawyer or a lawyer that is very skilled in that side of the business, I think they would tell you that they should look at the contract. But I will say that the contract that I use, for example, or let me say it this way. What has to happen is between yourself and your co-writers, you all need to have what's called a split sheet or a split agreement. And that split agreement essentially defines who owns the music, right? And who owns the publishing, who owns the master, etc. And it would also indicate if it's one stop, which essentially means that the music supervisor or whoever's going to be utilizing this music can go to any one of the co-writers, anybody who's on that contract, and get an approval to use the track or not, right? And so what they don't want to do is have me say, you can use the track for the placement on this show, and then find out that one of my other co-writers disagreed with that, So One stop means just that one stop. So typically in your split sheet, you want to have that it's one stop. That's ideal, So you have the split agreement, and that's signed by each of the owners of the music, and then you would have the contract that would come for the placement itself. And again, like that would typically be through the sync agency, right? And so more times than not, at least from what I've seen, they're standard, they're fairly standard. And this is a long way of saying that within the community that you would probably end up finding yourself in, you're going to find several people in that community that have probably worked with that sync agency before. I think what I found is that it's a trustworthy source, So, but that's not to say that if you feel that you should, have a lawyer look at it, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that either.
So Jeff, really quick before we go, do you have any other tips for producers or songwriters who have a goal of landing a sync placement?
Well, I will say that, there's a lot to learn, and I just kind of scratched the surface, obviously, and I'm still learning more and more about it every day. If I was just getting started in sync or wanted to learn more about sync, there's a couple of places that I would go to. Many of the mentors that I worked with in six-figure songwriting are also have developed courses and or groups or communities that teach all about sync and also put you in front of music supervisors, listen to your music, give you feedback on your music, and sometimes even provide briefs. So again, you're becoming part of that community where you learn and you support one another. And one of them that I would absolutely recommend is called Sync It Music, and it's run by John Kleinbell and Sonnet Simmons Matthews, and they were both mentors of mine in six-figure songwriting. They're both very successful in sync and in the music business in general, and they have a wealth of knowledge to share with people. And they Sync It Music is relatively new. They came together and they started this. It was invaluable to learn all the ins and outs of the business side and a lot of the music elements that they're looking for. But I would say that the most value that I got from it was the people that I met. Because now, I mean, I have so many people that are in this journey with me that are all over the world, literally hundreds of them. Those relationships are just so incredibly valuable. There's another person who was another mentor of mine in that course, Steve Collum, and he has a course on how to get your music placed. He has a website, stevecollum.com, STEVECOLLOM.com, and it's all about getting your music placed. Those are the two that I would highly recommend. And then, joining some different groups, like Unicorn Sync is one sync agency that I have a song not placed through, but I have a couple of songs signed with them. And they have a Facebook group. And then For Goodness Sync, that's another one. And that's run by Tamara Bubble. Are you familiar with that one?
No, I'm not, but just the name is kind of funny.
Tamara, she is I don't want to say new. She's definitely not new, but she's, relatively new to the sync world, and she's just taken it by storm. She's got, I don't know, hundreds of placements, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And she's got a book out too, that's just fantastic. That particular group, you can learn about sync, but it's more about the community. And you'll see briefs come through. But it's a private group. There are rules that have to be followed. So I just want, if any of your viewers are going to go that route, they need to make sure that they look at the rules involved with being in the groups and really respect them.
Awesome. So we're going to put some of those links in the description. If you want to follow any of those leads that Jeff was telling you about, they'll be in the description. Thank you so much, Jeff, for your time and expertise. We really appreciate you sharing your experience with Sync today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. Glad
Awesome.
to be here.
Thank you very much.
All right, take care.
And one last point that Jeff made at the very end of our conversation was that if you're going to pitch to music supervisors, it helps to give them choice. So in addition to the full mix, also give them an a cappella and an instrumental. This will give them more to choose from. And in Jeff's case, it was actually the instrumental that got synced in Temptation Island. So giving a music supervisor more to choose from increases your odds of getting a sync. If you'd like to get in contact with Jeff to learn more about sync, or to just get some production work done, you can reach him at dreamterritoryproductions.com. It's been really great to reach out to subscribers and see what they're up to and what cool things they've achieved. If you want to get in contact with me, robert@learnaudioengineering.com is my email. Drop me a line, or let's set up a meeting and have a chat. I'd love to contact any of you. So yeah, thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.